Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you so much for tuning into one of our talks today. We are a year-round talk series bringing you the best creative voices across film, television, and theater. And today we're so fortunate to be joined by Hannah Zeile, who plays Kate Pearson in the series This Is Us. And one of the things I wanted to start by talking about is, the show has so much beautiful complexity to it and the places that it takes your characters to emotionally, but also at the same time moving through a lot of space and time. And you're playing this character over the span of about 4 years, which are hugely pivotal, in any young woman's life at that point. And we all go through so many changes at that age. And so I'm just so fascinated into, as the show continues to progress and become even more complex with your character, how you really track the different emotional strands and journeys that Kate is going on at all of these moments to be able to bring what you need into each of these different performances.
Right. Um, First of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk with you. But yeah, I think it's really interesting because I've said this before, but a lot of times as an actor, but also as a viewer, when you're watching something, it's up to your imagination to get the full picture of the character for character development. Like, it's really awesome that I work on a show where I see my childhood played out on screen and I watch it lead into my years, the teenage years, and the trauma that ensues there and how that's all connected to how you become as an adult. And I think that, like you said, the teenage years are such a pivotal time in someone's life. And I feel so grateful that I get to play this time because I think that if you watch Kate's progression, teenage Kate, although I'm sharing the role and it's one character, feels really individual to me. And that's why I take a lot of pride in it. And I'm so um, grateful to play the role because she just, I get to deal with a lot of the trauma that goes on in the teenage years, and that forms her a lot. But then there's a lot of growth that goes on when she becomes an adult. So I think that it's cool that it feels like my own role, and I've always felt like I get to make my own choices for her and that she's her own person in the teenage time. And I think a lot of people, when you look back on your teenage years, you probably feel like you're a different person then and you shed that skin when you became an adult. So I think it's really cool. I really love that I get to play that age. And I love that I'm in the 90s because I'm super into everything 90s. So it's fun.
Me too. There's also, to that point where you were talking about the trauma that she goes through a lot, a huge
Mm-hmm.
part of that is going through losing her dad. And particularly
Yes.
because the relationship that she had and that you really created with Milo in terms of that relationship is that like he was the person that really saw her in a different way. And he was also able to bring her out of herself whenever she was becoming very insular. And so I was really interested in how you've essentially crafted these two very different but also connected versions of who Kate is in the scenes when she still has her dad around and then in the scenes since when she's lost him, because she's much more introverted in a lot of those scenes and can gradually kind of come out of her shell a little bit more in the earlier moments.
Totally. And we see like through the loss of her dad how that affects her in other ways because there's that beautiful episode where she basically says to her dad like, I never want to stop trying to see myself the way that you see me. Obviously, Kate struggles with insecurities, with body image, with a lot of things, and through the close relationship she has with Jack, um, I think that if he would have been around longer, maybe she wouldn't have gotten into an abusive relationship like she does with Mark. I think that it's really interesting how the relationship with her father and the loss of her father really affects the other relationships she enters in with males. And I think that she was always looking for that reassurance from him, and that when he was gone, obviously she doesn't feel good about herself and then enters into a toxic relationship where someone is constantly putting her down and making her feel worse about herself. And she doesn't have, I think if Jack was around, it would have been a whole different path for her. Like, she sees a healthy example of a relationship at home between Rebecca and Jack, and um, obviously sees that Jack sets the bar very high for what a husband and a male should be. And I think that, it's sad, but if he was around, that it would have been a different result. But because of the loss of Jack, we see a complete shift happen in Kate. And she does become, like you said, more introverted. She carries a lot. She's always trying to help other people, but is really pretty introverted and keeps everything within. And we see that even in the most recent episode where it's been years and years, and now she's finally in a healthy relationship with Toby, who is somewhat resemblant of Jack and more of a relationship that her father exemplified. But she held this secret about the abortion and carried it on her own for years and years until she finally was able to open up to Toby about it. But yeah, I think that through that trauma that she goes in with losing her father, and because they were so close, it gives her just a different way she carries herself through the teen years. And it's just great that we see that when Chrissy finally is like working through and revisiting some of the trauma that she stuffed away, and is like reopening those doors and healing those wounds.
Yeah. I also think it's incredibly poignant watching that journey that she's going through in this season with having an abortion, that it's something that she never told anybody about in her life at the time. You know, it
Right.
wasn't something that she shared with her siblings, with her mom. Um, and so I was really fascinated in how that's played into scenes that you've filmed since you got those scripts, and really understanding this deeper layer and this other side of something that she's really been carrying with her a lot of this time.
Right. I can never say much about what's gone on since anything that's aired, because we keep a very tight lip around here. But um, I will say that I thought the connection that they did through teenage to adult Kate with that storyline was so beautiful to me. It's like we see Kate make this decision that she never shares with anyone. She even goes, to Mark's house hoping for change, but unfortunately, he's manipulative and emotionally abusive. And she realizes, she kind of has like a wake up moment while she's there of like, I can't I can't trust him with this. I'm going to have to go through this on my own. And I think that she carries a lot of shame, which is sad, because really she carries shame that wasn't even her own. She's carrying like a burden that really should have been Mark. He should have been the one carrying the shame. So I think it's really cool that we see all the way into her adulthood. Now, when she goes to confront adult Mark, it's like she doesn't even have to bring up the abortion specifically. She doesn't even need to say that. It's really for her own self to be like, I've carried this for so long. This has been my burden. It never should have been mine. Here's yours. Like, I give it back to you, and you deal with that. And for her to be able to finally rid herself of that and just say, I have a healthy relationship now. I've finally been able to open up about things. And, it's like, you're still the same. And I think that was like, that monologue was super powerful, and that storyline was super powerful. And I hope it helped people that have been in those kind of situations understand that when she finally does open up to Toby, all it was really her own anxieties of the fear of judgment or embarrassment or shame. It's like, maybe she could have told Rebecca and her siblings. And I think that everyone needs to have someone that they can confide in. And I think that that was a good lesson for her to realize, like, that there was people that she could have trusted, and she didn't need to carry that on her own all that time.
Yeah. And watching a lot of those scenes is such a great testament to the connectivity between the younger version and the adult version of this character that you and Chrissy Metz bring in. And I know it's something where you're not reading the scripts and looking at every single minute detail of who she is as an adult, because obviously as a teenager, she doesn't know who she's going to become yet. But are there
Right.
moments where you find yourself just looking at some of the bigger picture things and just looking at what are some of the aspects that she still carries with her and she still really holds on to specifically from her childhood, to kind of pull that into how you're thinking about her as a character and the types of things that are sitting with her on an emotional level?
I think definitely, but I think that, like I said before, the role feels like its individual role. Like, teenage Kate just feels very different from adult Kate Pearson. So a lot of the time, um, I'm not really thinking too much ahead. I know that I'm always so grateful when people say that they can see like similarities in mannerisms or facial expressions between Chrissy and I. And I'm so grateful that we've never really, like, we have our own relationship, but we've never really conversated about the role specifically. It's like, I'm really honored that she trusts me enough to make my own decisions for Kate. But I think just because I'm such a fan of Chrissy's and I like watching her performances, and she always does such a great job, I think that maybe subconsciously I've picked up on some of the things. But if anything, I think it'd be that'd be a question that would be interesting to ask to Chrissy as well, because obviously I can't show into the future, but you can look into your past. So her playing adult Kate, it'd be interesting for her to answer if she ever looks back on some of the things that I've played out and brings that into her performances.
Yeah. And one of the other relationships that is so poignantly captured is the mother-daughter relationship that you have with Mandy Moore, because it really is a very realistic portrayal of some of the complexities that can exist so frequently between a mother and a daughter. There's ways in which they're so similar to each other, and that's where some of the conflict comes from. At the same time, Kate's very much her own person and wants to kind of break off and have her own identity. And particularly going through those teenage years where you're figuring out who you are as well. And so I was interested in the way that the two of you work together just to find all those different layers and those different moments within their dynamic in that way.
Yeah, working with Mandy is incredible. She's amazing. But yeah, I think that it is a very genuine and realistic portrayal of what a mother-daughter relationship is like, and especially when um something so traumatic goes on in the household, it's really difficult when um everyone wants to help each other, but at the same time everyone's struggling on their own. So trying to navigate, how Kate wants to help other people but is also in her own battles. And I think that we see little moments where we can see them start to form a connection, and um just the little things, like there's the episode where they are at the house together and then Kate asks Rebecca to dance. Like, I thought that was so sweet, and you can just um tell through Mandy's performances. We never really like speak about it, but you can just, through what she performs, you can see on her face, like Rebecca just lights up. Rebecca's constantly like there trying to be what a mother should be. Like, my favorite monologue is when Rebecca tells her, basically tells Kate, you can reject me every time, but my job as a mom is just to be here with open arms, and whenever you're ready to like fall into me, like I'm going to be here waiting for that. And I think that it's really great that Kate's very stubborn and doesn't want to rely on Rebecca a lot of the time, but we see as she works through her trauma, as she grows and matures and really starts to probably resonate with her mother more, because now she's becoming a grown woman, and now as an adult, like becoming a mother, and just all these things, she kind of can look back and see that Rebecca wasn't perfect, but she also had lost her husband and was raising kids on her own and was really doing everything she could for them. And I think that it's beautiful that we see their relationship like kind of mend as she becomes a grown woman herself.
Mhm. There's also the really beautiful aspect of who Kate is as a person, that she very frequently with her brothers, puts their emotional needs and whatever it is that they need from her, ahead of herself, even to her own
Mhm.
detriment at some points, which again kind of leads back to that thing where she's just internalizing a lot of things because she's trying to really be there and support and lift up the two of them. So how does the fact that she's always thinking about them first and what they need and what they want from her really inform a lot of the ways in which you think about the character and some of the choices that you make emotionally when you're figuring out how Kate would respond to some of the situations that she's in with the two of them?
It's interesting because I think that quality of Kate is probably what I myself relate to the most. I think that um, that's something that I see in myself as well. And it's kind of been a learning lesson a lot of the time playing this role, because, like I was saying before, it's a lot of the times you want to help other people, and Kate wants to help and be there for her brothers, but at the same time you have to acknowledge that you yourself are, you know, going through loss and trauma as well. So you can't really be as beneficial for everyone else if you're not working on yourself and your own issues as well. And we see them manifest in other ways, even if she does a great job of helping her brothers and being there for them, but then we watch her get into an abusive relationship. She has an unhealthy relationship with food that she uses to cope. You never really escape them. You can stuff them down, but you never fully actually escape, and they always end up manifesting in other ways. So I think that I've definitely been conscious of that, because through playing this role and watching how things unfold, I think that it's unraveled things to learn about myself as well. So, yeah.
It also sounds like in terms of working with Dan Fogelman, and the rest of the writing team, that as the shows continue to progress throughout the seasons, that, him and his team are always really looking at the performances that you all bring as actors and the way that you're interpreting the character. And are there ways in which you feel you've really had an opportunity to kind of bring certain things to the foreground or, enhance certain aspects of who Kate is because of that collaboration with Dan and the rest of the writing team on the show?
Absolutely. They're so communicative, and it's really something that I'm so grateful for, because as the actor, like, they don't need to let us have any say, but it's such a community and it's such a family that they usually, um, it's been kind of different with COVID and everything, but the door is always open into the writing room. They have us come in at the beginning of the year, just kind of laying out the storyline every time. There's new scripts or anything, like, it's always an open door to ask questions, or for me to feel comfortable to make choices as well, because this character is so important to me and I have become teenage Kate Pearson. So it's really cool that they let it be so collaborative. And um yeah, I'm super grateful for that, especially with this newest episode, with the abortion episode. Obviously it was very heavy material, and I was excited because they trusted me to portray this, but I was also a little bit nervous because I wanted to make sure I did it in a respectful way. And I knew that it was going to be such a pivotal point in Kate's storyline. So I wanted to make sure that I did it justice. And it was just really awesome that I received messages from Dan saying, if you have any questions, call me, we can talk through it. And then having two females, KJ, the head writer, and Anne as director on set, willing to talk through anything and give me their perspective, but then also want to hear what I have to say about it, and not um, let it be just one sided, but let it all be like a joint effort. And I think that that's rare. And I think that that's what's so great about the show that I work on, is that it really is, I know it sounds cliche, but when we say it, like, it really is just like a family and a very well-oiled machine. And without each part, we really wouldn't be able to get the work that we do done. So I'm really grateful.
And are there ways at this point that you feel that your process and the way that you prepare when you're going into shoot scenes and new episodes has really shifted and evolved because you know this character so inside out and have had the opportunity to explore her in so many different ways at this point?
I think that it kind of just becomes second nature once you've played the role for a long time. It's like, in the beginning, you're kind of getting to know her as the audience is as well. And as we learn more and more about her life, you're kind of understanding her more. But now it's almost like really cool to be able to fully step into her reality and just not feel like I'm making thoughts as Hannah, like, what would Kate do? If it makes sense, like, to actually feel like I've stepped into her reality, and like that I can feel like I fully understand and carry like the weight of the loss of her father and the abusive relationship and her relationship dynamic with Rebecca. Like, as everything is unfolded and there's more and more layers onto it, I feel like it just becomes more of a natural, like, absent of thought kind of thing.
And you've talked a lot about how playing this character and working on the show has really also kind of like helped you in building your own self-confidence. And what are the
Mm-hmm.
ways through that you feel like it's really helped to enhance your craft and the work that you do and your skill set as an actor through finding that confidence and just really getting to live in a character so much?
Right. I think that with my personal self-confidence journey, at least, I feel like it will always just kind of be an everyday thing that I'm working on. I think that um, I'm never really rid of it, but I definitely am able to address my insecurities or my anxieties and like be aware that I have them, but then learn through how I've played with Kate that you kind of just have to push through them and the uncomfortability of them, and not let them get in your way or hinder your growth or hinder your own opportunities. I think that um, I don't know, it was a funny parallel that when they did the whole storyline of Kate applying to Berkeley, and then with all the trauma that goes on, she decides not to even send in the tape and then drops singing for the whole time until she's an adult, where um if she would have not gotten insecure about it and followed through with that opportunity, I don't know where the storyline could have gone. But it's funny that I was like the same way, and it through actually playing this role, I never had to audition in my I never had to sing in my audition for this role, but then it was written into my storyline. And that was also one of my own insecurities, like the same as Kate. I was like how she's very private about it. I've always loved to sing, but been I've always had like really bad stage fright about it. And then through playing this role, it was a weird parallel that um when they do the episode where Mandy Moore is like finds Kate's tape and they show her facial reaction, we didn't have the recorded version yet. And so I was asked to just sing it live on set so that Mandy could react like off camera. And that broke down a huge barrier for me. And like that was pushing through one of my insecurities there, which was the same as Kate as well. So I don't know. I think that playing this role, because when you're studying so much about another person, like a character, you really start to identify things that are in yourself as well. And maybe you didn't realize that you're also doing a dive not into just the character, but into your own self as well. And I think that through playing Kate, I've had a lot of growth, which has been good.
Yeah. Well, watching you play Kate in the series is always such a wonderful pleasure, even if it breaks everybody down in tears every episode. So congratulations on, especially this season. It's really astounding what you've managed to do with this character at this point in the show, and can't wait to watch more of it. And thank you so much for talking with us.
Oh, thank you so much.